my game was the year before, it was a year afterwards. Whereas like the past months, maybe I didn't that much. So if you go out every single night, even better. By the way, while you're going out, especially when I was in Austin, I was really terrible when I moved to Project Hollywood. They all thought I was good because I met these guys in Chicago and it was freezing cold, so we never went out. And it's like, it was sort of this weird situation where they all thought I was friends with somebody else, and they thought, oh, he must be a good pickup artist. And that's how I got invited to Project Hollywood. But before that, I was terrible. When I was in Austin, because some of the old guys were terrible. Anyway, what we do is we go out and all right, we got to go out 4 nights a week, let's go. So we go out, we go to like Spill, and we'd sit down and be like, all right, you going to approach? You approach. I approach last. Okay, I'll do it. That's it. I don't like that set. I'm going to do, I guess I'll go do this one. And it was like this, I'm sure like half the people here, maybe all of them, like, yeah, that's what we do too. And it was like this big chore, and all I was focusing on is like getting through the night. I was like, all right, 2 hours left. If I do 4 more sets, I can call it a day. So, you need this focus where you're going to be going out all the time, but you need to be focusing on the real thing. What you want to be focusing on is honest feedback from yourself. You need to be, number one, pushing your comfort zone, like I said, being brutally honest with yourself about what's working and what's not. That's one major mistake I see people make, is I see people do these sets where it goes terrible, and they're like, oh man, she totally wanted me, but her friend cock-blocked her. It's like, no, she did. I mean, like, you build up your ego and you want it to go well, and so you like try to take the positive, and that's cool. You want to keep yourself pumped up, but at the same time, if you aren't actively looking at what's going on around you and the feedback you're getting, you're never really going to push it. And, most areas where you're going to learn a skill, it's impossible to get brutally honest feedback because people aren't brutally honest in general. The pickup is one area where you can get perfect feedback. Girls don't mind being rude because they're hit on by like lame dudes all day, so they're like, yeah, we're fine, leave me alone. And like you know what that means. And so it's this like beautiful source of feedback that a lot of people don't take advantage of. That's beautiful.
Sorry, just to clarify, by feedback you mean they say get lost, and that's feedback you mean like if you get blown out, go play it and be like, why do you hate me?
Honestly, you can do both. And here's the thing, honesty I think is the most important thing. Right? A lot of people try to front, like act like some super cool person that they're not. They're cool in like their fluffy way. I think it's a totally acceptable thing to go up to a girl and be like, you know what, this is gonna sound really weird, but I'm really trying to like learn how to be better with girls. And if you can tell me like some things you think I could improve on, that'd be awesome. Like, you're never gonna sleep with that girl probably, but you're going to anyway, and like maybe she'll give you some good advice. So I'd say, and that's the thing, it's like if you really dedicate yourself, you're like, I'm gonna get good at this no matter what, then you're willing to do things like that that are totally out of your comfort zone. You think, you know what, that's a risk. Maybe 90% of the time they're just gonna be like, oh, you're weird, leave me alone. 10% of the time you're gonna get a girl. Because girls are nice people. A few of them. They'll give you, they'll say, well, you came on too strong, this and that. So I think that's really valuable source of information that a lot of people try to like walk keep a blind eye to. They're like, oh, whatever, gotta stay in state. Another super important thing, this is a problem that everybody had back in the day. All we would do was routines, right? Like, just like I'm using my cell phone for notes from Chicago, we used to have like our entire staff, and we'd like run out of things to say, be like, So my neighbor has these 2 dogs. And the problem with this is that we were all sort of like learning at the same time in Hollywood. The big problem with Hollywood, even with a lot of the really good guys, is that we would have these stacks, we'd churn through them, and girls would be like, oh my god, this guy has so much interesting stuff to talk about, and then, they go to meet you up on the date, you're sitting there at the table, and they're like, so, how's it going? And then the girl's like, what the hell? I met this guy yesterday, he had like a million interesting things to say, and now he's like asking me about my job. And I think the absolute best way, there's 2 parts, the absolute best way to not have that problem is to learn how to tell a good story. Right? Because you can tell a good story, you can make anything interesting. Like I remember when I was really, for a while I was just focusing on storytelling. And I was trying to tell my friend this, like, pressure off a little bit, because I come back from LA, I'm like, look at all this stuff I'm learning. And so we're telling these girls, we're playing cool with them, and I said, look, I'm going to tell this girl about how I went grocery shopping, that sort of thing. Right? So, you build into this whole story, you talk about like a little association of things, so, and of course I just said, oh, that's amazing. So I think a lot of people say, well, I don't have any good stories. The problem isn't the content that's really good. So if you learn how to tell a good story, you can talk about anything. So I'm going to give you a little quick outline of how I tell a good story and how I'm going to try it. So any story has an arc, right? Start off, you've got the background, you're building up, and every story has like that big, and then I found out she was my sister, or whatever. Get that? I know. Right?
Oh shit.
So anyway, and like this is super basic. And if you look at routines that are really successful in a lot of big artists, you'll notice that they all follow this pattern. This is how I learned this. I learned all the routines, and I thought, oh, they're all exactly the same. So you build up, you have the background, you build up, and then you drop the hammer. And then I found out she's my sister. And then what most people do is then the girl's like, oh my god, that's so crazy. And the guy's like, oh yeah, she likes the story. Well, and then later we went on and we did this and this, and then all of a sudden the story's boring. So, the way to tell a good story is you start with the background. And while you're telling the story, you should look the girl in the eyes and see how interested she is. If she's not interested, you want to drop the hammer a lot quicker because she doesn't care about your background. And if she's really bored, like one of these, you want to just instantly change the story because she doesn't care. Okay? But if she's really, really interested, you want to draw that out forever, right? So then we're walking up, and I looked and I was like, wait a minute. I know I've seen that car somewhere. So I was trying to think back. I thought, I was in LA the other day, and I saw a car just like, so you just, I'm not adding any information about just building and building and building. And then drop the hammer, and then I found out she's my sister. And then as soon as you drop the hammer, next story, right? So what you want your arc to look like in terms of excitement and like interest is you want to start, build, drop the hammer, and then, and so anyway, you have a little wrap up, and then you start the next one, you build up, so you keep going up like this. Because what a lot of people do is they start, they build up, drop the hammer, then it gets boring, the girl's like, oh my god, this guy's never going to stop talking about this. You tell another story, you keep going down and down and down. So I think if you're aware of this little, like just that basic structure of the story, you'll find that you can tell those things pretty interesting. And if you focus like next time somebody's telling you a story, like try to keep track of where they are in the story in terms of the arc, and you'll see that if you like it, you'll probably follow that arc. If you didn't, you're probably down here. And the other big problem is that people will go off on tangents. They'll start the story like, oh, and that was my friend. And anyway, the first time I met him, we were back in high school, and like all of a sudden this interesting story you had is talking about like computer science class and this. So,
What's the story with the intrusion?
I don't have one. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So, regarding the tangent and actually like letting the air out of the tension.
Yeah.